You can drink 3 liters of water a day and still be literally dried out on the inside. There is a biological paradox that most people are unaware of. You can certainly flood your internal pipes with the very purest water in the entire world, but if your individual cells are completely deaf to the signal, then that water will simply never reach its final intended destination. All you'll be doing is putting stress on your kidneys. Achieving true deep hydration isn't the basic act of filling yourself up. Rather, it is a complex act of internal communication. If water is the hardware, what I have in these hands is the software. In the world of biophysics, we don't drink water, we capture it. Today, you are going to discover exactly why your physical body prefers to eat its hydration, and how to effectively use the 6 distinct families of cellular intelligence to repair your inner cathedral from within. We are going to transition from simply being flooded to finally being truly connected. Welcome to the fascinating world of trapped water. In the video Thank You previous, we learned how to resurrect the hardware H3O2 water. But today, we're going to install the software. At school, we were taught that water is a solvent, and they told us that water dissolves things. It's the medium where vitamins, minerals, and waste float, and it's seen as a kind of passive stage, or a bucket where you throw in the ingredients and wait for them to react. This view treats water as something inert, and under this logic, it would make no difference to drink tap water or the water contained in an orange, as long as that solvent reaches the stomach. Well, when I say that today we're going to install the software, what I'm doing is elevating the function of the solvent to that of a data carrier. And this is where the context becomes profound. You see, more than just wetting things, water connects. In a cell, water is not loose. Dissolving things, it's attached. To proteins and DNA, is not a solvent that just flows, it's a true communication network. And thanks to those hydrogen bonds, water can transmit protons and electrical signals at almost instantaneous speeds. Therefore, instead of seeing it as a liquid that transports substances, we should see it for what it is: a fiber, a liquid optical fiber, a true messenger. A common solvent is a disordered soup, but the water we're going to see in the 6 families is a perfectly ordered liquid crystal, which not only transports the mineral, the solute, but the mineral itself gives the water the necessary form so that the cell can recognize it. As I was saying, they made us believe that our cells are sacks of water where chemical substances float, but the reality is much, much more elegant. Water is not just the background of the picture, it's the processor. And in fact, in biophysical engineering, we know that water is a carrier of data and energy whose role is to organize. We don't want to pour more liquid into the bucket. What we want is to input instructions into the network. And there's one more thing that's important to remember. When you drink water, especially if that water hasn't been revitalized, your body has to perform an immense thermodynamic task to integrate it into the cellular matrix. However, the fruits and vegetables we're going to talk about today are not foods in the traditional sense. In the traditional sense, they are true liquid crystal transfer devices. When you eat water, through these 6 families, you are introducing into your body a fluid that has already been filtered by a biological matrix. In other words, the plant has already done the dirty work for you. It is structured and in a gel phase. The water inside them is not liquid H2O, it's H3O2. These are intricately bound to organic polymers and heavily loaded with specialized signaling software. Every distinct family carries within it a kind of mineral and enzymatic barcode that instructs your biological systems exactly where to send that essential hydration. Or so you stop groping in the dark, I have designed an engineering map that divides nature. Thank you. Into 6 critical departments. I believe this division will allow you to use the right tool in every corner of your cathedral. I'll give you the list and then we'll go through them one by one. However, since it's long, it will take us 2 videos to cover it. To start the initial phase of this process, the specialized hyper-hydrators are primarily responsible for the essential task of widening the narrow road and clearing away all the heavy debris so that the water can flow much more easily and efficiently through the entire area. Second are the structural ones, meaning those that are the smart cement repairing your walls and preventing water from escaping through the cracks. Then there are those that act as a shield. The electron ones, meaning those that keep the battery charged and the pH stable in the face of oxidative attack. Fourth, we must consider the metabolic sensors, which act as the highly sophisticated precision technology that carefully tunes your brain's performance, while simultaneously optimizing your entire digestive system for better health. Fifth, the specialized mitochondrial optimizers are the ones that effectively instruct and empower your biological cells to produce their own internal water from within. And finally, sixth, we have those that take us all the way back to our very primal origins. These are the essential fluids that possess the exact same bioelectrical signature and frequency as your own human blood. As you can see, today you're not going to learn how to eat better. What you're going to learn is how to install software that will finally allow your cathedral to be energetically sovereign. You have officially stopped being just a simple consumer of water, and you have now finally received more than enough professional training to become a true sophisticated programmer of your very own personal hydration. Well then, let's start with the hyper-hydrators, that is, those that promote flow and clearing out. These not only bring water, but also grant permission for the water to enter the deepest tissues, and the first ones are watermelon and melon. The L-citrulline found inside it acts as a precursor to nitric oxide. This nitric oxide then works to relax the walls of your capillaries, just so you can get a better idea. If you imagine that water is the car, then you can think of citrulline as the force that widens the road. And what's the consumption protocol? With watermelon and melon, well, it's actually very simple and basic. First, one instruction. Don't throw away the white part attached to the rind, because that's where the L-citrulline is concentrated. Eat the whole melon or watermelon, but of course without the rind, obviously, and don't make it into juice, so that the fiber regulates the absorption. And here's a detail: if you want an extra boost in blood flow, add a pinch of Celtic salt to the pieces you eat. To optimize your internal environment, there's nothing better than starting your day with this cellular hydration protocol. Pay attention because, once again, it's very simple. When you get up, drink a glass of water with the juice of 1 lemon. What this will do is wake up your digestive enzymes and provide your body with nutrients that will help prepare the ground. And shortly after, have a good plate of watermelon or melon pieces for breakfast, because when you're fasting, the absorption of citrulline is much faster and more efficient, allowing your body to make the most of that living water you're giving it to hydrate your cells after the overnight fast. But keep one thing in mind. Watermelon has a high glycemic index. Personally, I eat melon. And now we come to the second one, from this group of super-hydrators. Cucumber, and pay attention, always with the skin. Cucumber is the king of bioavailable silica, and silica is the mineral of elasticity and conductivity. Drinking cucumber water is like sending a maintenance crew to check the flexibility of your electrical cables. That said, try to look for organic cucumbers so you can eat the skin without worrying about ingesting substances you'd rather avoid. And if you can't find organic ones, don't worry about it either. What you can do is soak the cucumber in water with about 2 or 3 tablespoons of vinegar and let it sit there for 10 or 15 minutes. Then you take it out, rinse it well under running water, and it's ready to use. It's a simple and effective way to clean the vegetable so you can get all its benefits. So then, what's the protocol in this case for what I call the electric juice? First of all, you should know that this cucumber juice is the cheapest and most powerful option. This is important. So, blend a whole cucumber, always with the skin on, and if you can, add 3 stalks of celery. And now, pay attention to a synergy. If you've mixed the cucumber juice with the 3 stalks of celery, the cucumber, what it does is provide silica for the cables, and the celery will provide the cluster salts to help cleanse. Take it on an empty stomach to thoroughly clean the pipes before starting your day. And now, let's transition our focus over to the one I have only recently introduced to you, celery. Celery is the most prominent and vivid illustration of the geometry of ions. This substance is known as a kosmotrope. If we want the cathedral to be built upon truly firm and stable biophysical foundations, then we must direct our full attention toward the complex scientific discipline of molecular exclusion. Celery is exceptionally and remarkably abundant in essential mineral salts like sodium and potassium, which exist in an ionic and organic form that is extremely easy for the human body to absorb and utilize effectively. In biophysics, we classify certain ions as kosmotropes, a word that comes from the Greek kosmos, which means order. And these ions have the unique ability to organize the water molecules around them, facilitating the transition from liquid H2O to structured water, or H3O2. The research of Pollack, Dr. Gerald Pollack, demonstrated that water in a gel state, or the exclusion zone, possesses a fundamental physical property. Pay attention, it actively excludes any residual solute or pathogen. When LaPo electrolytes help expand this layer of structured water around your membranes, what you're actually doing is creating a true shield, an electric shield. And here's something important. It is not simply that these mineral salts actively engage and attack an invader in a direct chemical way. What they actually do is significantly reinforce and strengthen the cell's internal water network, thereby creating a protective environment that is physically impenetrable to harmful toxins and viruses. In other words, these organic salts optimize the conductivity of the extracellular fluid and allow the sodium-potassium pump to effortlessly maintain the vital voltage of -70 millivolts or -90 millivolts, as we've mentioned in previous videos. You are reinforcing both the insulator and the charge of your biological battery at the same time. Well then, we've now reached the last of the hyper-hydrators. Royal pineapple. Pineapple is the most potent source of bromelain, a true complex of proteolytic enzymes. Think about it. The large proteins we consume from meat, eggs, or legumes are like long, heavy steel chains. And if they aren't properly broken down, what happens is that they get stuck in the interstitial space that is in the ocean where your cells and mind swim. And in the end, they end up creating a biological swamp of dirty, stagnant water that blocks electricity. Well, bromelain is the pineapple's biological machete. And that's exactly what proteolytic means. Proteo, protein. Lysis, breaking down or dissolving. In the context of the cathedral, think of bromelain as a kind of enzymatic machete. When there is inflammation or poor digestion in the space between your cells, the interstitial space, what happens is that complexes of proteins and fibrin accumulate, and these remnants trap water, turning it into the biological swamp I mentioned. Disorganized water, which is liquid H2O of very low quality. And in this swamp, the voltage drops and minerals simply can't travel. So then, what is the action of bromelain? First, depolymerize. Bromelain breaks down those protein meshes that keep water trapped. And this is what we commonly know as edema. So, by liquefying those blockages, the water starts to circulate again. And this is the second function, restoring flow. And once the water is freed from the swamp, it becomes available again to be structured as H3O2, thanks to light and minerals. And the third function, reducing friction. By eliminating excess proteins in the tissues, electrical resistance is reduced, which makes it easier for nerve impulses to travel with less interference. In short, consume it preferably between meals if you want its effect. Anti-inflammatory and its systemic drainage. And if you take it right after eating, the bromelain will be used up, helping to digest the food, which by the way is also quite useful, but less of it will be absorbed into your bloodstream, which is where it works to cleanse the tissues. Use it when you feel heavy or when you feel fluid retention. Have a couple of natural slices after a heavy meal. And these will activate the bromelain to get things moving. The stagnant water. And here are two important pieces of information for you. The first is that the highest concentration of bromelain is in the core of the pineapple, that hard center. So don't throw it away. Blend it or chop it very finely to incorporate it. And second, if the pineapple is canned or has been heated, the enzyme is dead. You should always eat pineapple fresh and raw. Well, that's it for the hyper-hydrators. Now we come to the subsequent category of nutritional food items, the essential structural components of our diet, or if you would rather refer to them by a different name, the glue of the liquid crystal or the protective layer known as intestinal varnish. Please, thank you. The foods I'm about to talk to you about now transform H2O into a thick protective gel, which is H3O2. And the first ones, and I would say the most important, are Aloe Vera and Nopal or cactus. These plants survive in the desert because they have perfected the art of retaining water in the form of mucilage. Mucilage are carbohydrate polymers that keep water in a permanent gel state, H3O2. And when you consume them, not only are you hydrating yourself, but you're also coating your digestive system with a protective layer. That specialized gel works to repair the delicate internal lining of your intestine and ensures, thank you, that the water doesn't escape before being fully absorbed. The consumption of these two plants involves a double protocol, one for preparation and one for consumption. Let's start with the preparation protocol for aloe vera or sabila. Well, whether you decide to use the fresh plant directly from your own backyard garden or simply choose to buy it already cut from a local store, there is one step here that you must never ever skip: the removal of aloe. And with that said, let's move on to the three parts of the preparation protocol. The first is cutting and bleeding. Always use a basil leaf. Basil leaves are the largest and outermost ones. Place the leaf vertically in a jar with water for 2 to 4 hours or even overnight if possible. and you'll see that a liquid comes out, yellow or reddish, and that's aloe. It's a very irritating and laxative latex that we definitely don't want in our preparation. Second part, filleting. So once it's bled, cut off the spiny edges and remove the green skin with a sharp knife until you're left with just the transparent gel inside the plant or leaf. And after this comes the final wash. Rinse the gel under running water until it stops feeling slippery to the touch, and do this with cold water. We want the pure gel with no traces of sap left. Yellow sap. Alright, now let's move on to the preparation protocol for Nopal or cactus. Nopal is a hydration gem, but it's slime. It scares many people. And here's the secret to using it to your advantage. It also has 3 parts. The first, cleaning. It's very simple. If the nopal has spines, remove them by scraping with a knife or simply by nopal that already comes despined. Second, always use it raw so that its water structuring properties remain intact. Don't even think about cooking it. If you do, you'll break the mucilage chains. And third, blending. Cut the nopal into small pieces and use it directly in the blender. And now I'll give you a little tip about synergies as well. But first, let me make a comment that I'm sure you've thought of yourself. Have you thought about it? This is not a juice to enjoy as a snack. This is true preventive maintenance. It's kind of like creating a protective coating for your intestine yourself. So, what's the master blend? Blend a heaping tablespoon of aloe gel or a piece of nopal about 5 centimeters long with 200 milliliters of revived Calila water, as we saw in the previous video, or spring water. And mix all of that with the juice of half a lemon. And this is the synergy. Why the lemon? Well, it's very simple. Because the citric acid in the lemon acts as a true natural preservative and helps the body better absorb the polysaccharides from the gel. Take it if possible on an empty stomach and at least 20 minutes before eating any other solid food. Take a moment to really think about the fact that the delicate inner walls of your intestine often have tiny cracks or openings, which is a condition scientifically called intestinal permeability. And this protective gel acts much like a layer of real cement to seal them up. It's biological because it coats your intestinal epithelium and allows the water you drink afterward to be absorbed through the correct channels. These are the aquaporins, so the water doesn't get lost through those cracks. And in this way, you also prevent systemic inflammation. Well, let's proceed forward at this time to the very next category of these essential structural foods. And this particular one is also a remarkably powerful and authentic binding agent for liquid crystal. These are nutrient-dense activated chia seeds and organic flax seeds. Whenever you carefully place a tiny chia or flax seed into a container of water, you are doing much more than simply softening the outer fiber. You are actually initiating and activating what scientists call a true molecular exclusion factory within the seed itself. Dr. Gerald Pollack's laboratory specifically analyzed chia and discovered that the transparent halo surrounding the seed is not just slimy water, it's real, pure easy exclusion zone. Pure. And what's fascinating is that the volume of this H3O2 gel can be more than double the volume of the seed itself. What does this mean? It means that chia is capable of organizing a massive amount of water around itself, simply because of the nature of its surface. In electrical engineering, a capacitor is a component that stores energy in an electric field. And in the case of chia, this is not just a theory, it's real science. This is groundbreaking and cutting-edge science in the rapidly evolving field of green electronics and biopolymers. This innovative technology efficiently stores energy. Extensive scientific research, which has been prominently published in prestigious academic journals such as the Journal of Energy Storage and Studies on Natural Polymers, has clearly demonstrated that Chia mucilage possesses remarkable dielectric and ionic transport properties. To better understand this complex process, you can think of each individual chia seed as if it were a tiny, highly skilled architect. This natural structure provides a fascinating foundation for new energy technologies. When it touches water, it doesn't just swell up. What it does is unfold an entire network of invisible threads that expand outward. That sticky gel you see, and what we call it is the mucilage of chia, is actually a true three-dimensional scaffold. It's not just a mass. It's not shapeless. It's a perfectly engineered structure. And why is it a smart sponge? Unlike bath sponges that only trap water in a passive way, the chia network is electric. And in those invisible threads, there are anchoring points that scientists call hydroxyl groups. We've talked about them in previous videos. Well, think of them as if they were tiny magnets with a negative charge. They're like electric hooks, and since they have a negative charge, what they do is strongly attract minerals and to the water molecules, forcing them to line up. In other words, they bring order to the chaos. Thanks to this electric scaffold, water stops being chaotic H2O liquid and becomes that structured H3O2 gel your cells love. How does this fit into your cathedral? Well, so you understand, drinking water with chia isn't just about adding fiber to your body, it's about taking in water that's already programmed. When you activate chia in water for at least 12 hours, what you're actually doing is creating a biological energy storage device. And since it's trapped, thank you. In this network of nanofibers, the water enters your system with its own charging infrastructure. It doesn't have to draw energy from your body to organize itself. The chia has already done the electrical engineering work for you. It's as if you were handing your cell a fully charged battery instead of a pile of loose parts. You are probably sitting there wondering to yourself, what exactly is so incredibly special about that unique gel with all those different segments? The fascinating answer is that what you are seeing right now isn't just simple mucilage, bien. It is actually a real functioning battery in a liquid form. Tiny chia seeds contain extremely long chains of molecular structures that are quite complex, of complex sugars. Think of them as electrical cables unspooling. And these cables have a fascinating property. These particles are fundamentally negatively charged. This essentially means that whenever they come into direct contact with liquid water, a highly critical and complex biophysical phenomenon begins to occur, which is known scientifically as the process of charge separation. The gel is the negative pole, it traps electrons and organizes itself. The excess water is the positive pole, the protons are expelled. And at that very moment, you don't just have a glass with seeds. What you have is a biological capacitor, charged and ready to deliver energy to your cells. It's authentic hydration with voltage. But pay attention, here comes the most incredible part. Why do we say that this water is pure? Even if the original water wasn't that pure. The hexagonal structure of the fourth state of water, H3O2, is so dense and so perfectly packed that it acts as a true quantum filter. Think of it as a highly specialized kind of protective safety net, with microscopic holes so incredibly small that only the very purest of water molecules are ever allowed to join in the rhythmic dance. In other words, harmful debris such as environmental toxins, heavy metals, or even large inorganic minerals are truly and physically expelled from the structure. The tight hexagonal network simply has no room for these impurities. As its specific name suggests, Within this exclusion zone, this unique gel effectively excludes all forms of disorder. Consequently, what you end up drinking is pure, structured water that nature has meticulously filtered just for you, using laws of physics that your typical pitcher filter doesn't even know exist. In other words, you're bringing into your cathedral a building material that is already clean and, above all, organized. When you really stop to think about it, chia should not just be considered a simple superfood because of its vitamins. It is actually a remarkable piece of biological engineering for your entire body. It is this advanced device that empowers you to effortlessly create high-fidelity water right in your own kitchen, relieving your physical body of the incredibly demanding task of having to filter and structure the water all by itself. It also has its own protocol, which is actually an engineering or crystal activation protocol. First and foremost, never eat them dry. If you eat the seeds dry, when they enter your body, they will steal water from your own tissues to try to form their gel, and they will dehydrate you from the inside. Put a tablespoon in a glass of mineral or revitalized water and let it sit overnight. That mucilage is the armored transport that ensures the water reaches your intestine intact and from there to your cells, without getting lost along the way. Remember, 12 hours. That's optimal. By adding this gel to your smoothies, what you're doing is lowering the surface tension of the liquid. And this makes the water wetter and allows it to penetrate better into the aquaporins of your cells. When you take a sip, you are drinking nothing but pure, concentrated potential energy. With this, we come to the third and final food in the group of structural foods, the liquid crystal glue or intestinal varnish that we'll look at today. But we've already dedicated an entire video to this third one because it's sea moss, the so-called sea moss. So I won't go into detail about it. I would just like to take a moment to remind you that it actually provides all of the 92 minerals that function specifically as the essential anchors for the process of structuring water. Remember that without minerals, water is like a net without knots. It has no connectivity. Well then, now, let's move on to the third group of foods, those that are the true shield of electrons and charge for structured water, or EZ. Earlier, I explained that the exclusion zone, or EZ, is like a battery that stays charged because it has a high density of electrons. However, constant daily stress, harmful electromagnetic radiation, and also a consistently poor diet act as true, aggressive charge thieves, constantly stealing vital electrons and systematically breaking down the delicate internal structure of our water. That is exactly why it is so incredibly important to nourish yourself with healthy whole foods that provide us with powerful protective electron shields. The very first ones that I am going to talk to you about today are the lemon and the lime. These citrus fruits are actually the best examples of what we call oxidation reduction potential, which is more commonly referred to as ORP. What makes lemon special is not just its chemistry, that is, citric acid or vitamin C, but its physics. In fluid engineering, we measure a substance's ability to donate electrons through its oxidation reduction potential, the ORP. Well, while tap water usually has a positive ORP, that is, it is oxidizing and steals electrons, fresh lemon juice has a negative ORP, ranging from minus 100 to minus 200 millivolts. Although lemon is acidic outside the body, its mineral salts, potassium and magnesium citrates actually act as alkalizing agents in our metabolism. And this is absolutely essential and vital, because a slightly alkaline environment is the optimal and natural habitat, where H3O2 water can remain consistently stable and structured. This is the fascinating and complex ionic paradox of the lemon. When you take it on an empty stomach, what you're doing is flooding your system with free electrons before the morning cortisol starts to oxidize your cells. It's kind of like a cold start for your biological battery. A true engineering protocol. And now let's move on to the other group of foods, which are also, thank you, a shield of electrons. Green tea and matcha tea. These are true templates of geometric order. When we get to this group of foods, we enter the realm of natural nanotechnology. If plants were chemical laboratories, polyphenols would be more or less their most sophisticated product. They are a family of compounds that plants produce to protect themselves from solar radiation, fungi, and oxidative stress. Well, in the context of our cathedral, the star polyphenol is EGCG, which stands for epigallocatechin gallate. And this one is not just a molecule, it's a true precision tool. Think of tap water as a kind of crowd of people moving randomly in a plaza. It has extremely high entropy. But if you suddenly begin to play upbeat rhythmic music and place a professional choreographer right in the center, the entire crowd starts to organize itself naturally. Well, EGCG acts as exactly that kind of skilled choreographer for your body. The intricate molecular structure of EGCG is densely packed with numerous hydroxyl groups, and these specific groups act just like incredibly strong, high-intensity magnets that effectively capture and hold onto surrounding water molecules. And because of the physical shape of the EGCG molecule, when water sticks to it, but it can't do so just anyway, the molecule forces it to fit into a hexagonal geometry. When you drink matcha and pay attention, here I'm referring to the whole leaf powdered. The concentration of these templates, moreover, is 10 times higher. You're introducing millions of these templates into your system. The density of these templates is so high that the water physically becomes silkier, and this is the texture of quantum order. You're not hydrating yourself with liquid, you're drinking a suspension of molecular crystals that force the water in your cells to structure itself into layers of H3O2. Or, put another way, what you're doing is injecting a code of order that transforms chaotic water into that gel, H3 protector, or 2, or exclusion zone. And here, pay attention, practical thermodynamics comes into play. Entropy is chaotic movement, and heat is, by definition, kinetic energy, in other words, movement. At 100 degrees Celsius, water molecules move so violently that they break the hydrogen bonds. It's like trying to build the house of cards in the middle of a hurricane. Impossible! The CG axis tries to bring order, but the heat destroys the scaffolding before it can form. However, at 80 degrees Celsius, that's the sweet spot. There, you have just enough energy for the polyphenols to be released from the leaf, but you allow the hydrogen bonds to remain stable. It's the temperature of molecular cooperation. To sum up, when you have lemon with that pinch of Celtic salt, what you're doing is brilliant, because the salt provides the ions, which are the much-needed electrolyte, and the lemon provides the electrons, which are the charge. It's like connecting a copper wire to a power outlet. And green tea or matcha tea, on the other hand, helps to bring order. In other words, it ensures the geometry. If you combine all three, salt, lemon, and green tea or matcha, they ensure that the exclusion zone in your cells is so strong that no free radical can get through it. Well then, with this, we've finished the infrastructure phase. And what I've just done is show you the way and open the doors so you can shield your structure. We've cleaned the swamp, we've sealed the leaks in your membranes with the cement of aloe and chia, and you've just raised an entire shield. of electrons, so that nothing and no one can steal your voltage. Your cathedral is now a completely watertight and secure fortress and is fully protected from the elements. Your hardware is now fully operational and ready for use. Is it prepared for the most important thing? But pay attention to this, because it's important. A perfect fortress is useless if the general is deaf or if the internal boilers are shut down. In our very next upcoming video together, we're going to move forward from shielding to the ignition phase. I'm going to teach you all about the complex internal software of human intelligence, or how to fine-tune your brain with boron, how to turn your cells into a high-tech factory that efficiently produces its own internal biological water, and how to install the ultimate protective shield against what is the great and hidden saboteur, the sweet but deadly substance we know as sugar. If you feel that this video has restored your hope in your own health, and if you think it could do the same for others, you would do me a great favor by sharing it. I'll see you in the second part, where we'll finally turn on the generator and with it, the light. As I always tell you, keep moving forward, always. Keep moving forward and I'll read your comments.